Monday, Monday, so good to me.
Now, babies, I know it's not nice to, harass you too greatly on a Monday morning when you're first waking up and having to face the workaday world once again. But I hope you're doing something that makes you happy, at least if you're working. I hope you're doing something that keeps you in the vibe. And speaking of Skeeters, here's one trying to get me now. I'm going to burn that little sucker with my cigarette. Yeah. Now, I suppose Skeeters have a place in life, but I'm like my daddy before me. I could never figure out where they fucking fit in. I don't want them here, man. Enough of that shit. Same with the biting flies, man. Screw all of that, man. Ticks, too, man. Let's just send them to the river. Let's do a, what do you call that? St. Patrick's thing. That's what it is. I was looking for those words. St. Patrick's thing. Instead of leading the snakes away, let's lead the Skeeters away and all the biting bugs that go with them. Let's take them down to the Rio Grande and shove them off to the promised land, man. How's that for a beautiful vision on a Monday morning? How's that for a wake-up call? The sight of all the mosquitoes and all the biting insects in this here world and all the malaria and shit that goes with them, man. Talk about Lyme disease. What about, what's that other one? West Nile. I mean, shit. You guys over at the CIA, you've been a little overactive and foaming at the mouth, and doing some real insane, stupid-ass things, man, like turning loose all these crazy viruses so the Skeeters can carry them. And then you modified the Skeeters somehow, too. I don't know how these guys do it, but, they've been screwing around in the background, and doing all this skullduggery and all this bullshit. And they mess with nature, They haven't even remembered the lesson of Babylonia, let alone of Atlantia, man. Atlantis, shit. Man, this is where all of our torments of today come from, is our Atlantis days. Now, I know not too many of you remember it because, your soul presence was pretty much not present back then. Well, some of you were, but most of you weren't, Atlantis was a different day and a different age entirely and a whole different group of soul presences. Sorry to disappoint you that you weren't there. But some bitch, man, just take it as it is, Maybe you were living down on the other side of the continent somewhere, in an aboriginal tribe, and you had a happy life. You didn't have to deal with all this Atlantean crap. Because it was just as crazy then, 26,000 years ago or so, as it is right now, man. The bodily memory of that time is within you and within every person that lives. Even though you may or may not have been present back in those days. Like I said, it was a whole different soul group dealing with it then than it is now. We've brought in the rescue crew in this time frame. In a soul presence. You God blessed right. And I got to admit that I'm one of them. Just one, but I'm one of them, man, And there is this strange little vibe tribe that keeps gathering around this radio show one way or another. And you're one too, babies. You're drawn to it. You can't help yourself. We were born with a dream of a peaceful planet, a peaceful place, where everyone was so in love with everyone else, there wasn't even sex anymore. We already went beyond that, man. We're so God blessed close, we don't have to stick our la-la in our la-la anymore, man. We found better ways of evening the score because we're already way past that. That's teenagers shit. That's tiny stuff. And I know you're all totally obsessed with sex and you're trying to give up drugs. Well, what do you expect? It's fucking Monday, man. Yeah, baby, this is where you begin. This breath of right now, this universal breath that we all share. Do you notice we all breathe the same air? Have you noticed that? Now maybe you can fucking relax and go with the flow, man. Maybe it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. Maybe all that matters is what you're doing right now because that affects and influences everybody else anyway. How you're feeling has everything to do with the reality you live in, And on a Monday morning, I got to admit, the tendency is to wake up pissed off, For me, and for many people in this world because as the rescue crew, somewhat coming to consciousness now, we know this ain't the world we're meant to be living in, and we don't like this world. We love the beauty, the spectacular wonder of it, of course, and the beauty we see in the human heart, too. All of it, We don't discriminate, If you're Dick Cheney, we still love you, man. If you're Obama the drama, we still love you, man. We don't care who you are. You can be Simon Legree, the banker of the universe, man. We don't give a shit. We love you anyway, man. Doesn't mean we agree with what you're doing, but shit, we love you anyway, man. And loving you brings you back in the flow. Shit, guys. We got nothing to worry about. I mean, these pedophiles that have been running our governments and our industries for, generations without end now. Well, you got to remember, these are human beings. They're very sick human beings, There's not a hospital built that could ever cure them. They could lay in that bed and take all the monkey pus and drugs they want to pump into them. They'll never be cured of this shit until they realize their humanity. Until they realize their heart, which is our heart. We allow this shit in this reality, believe it or not. All of this harshness, all this God-blessed pain has been allowed by us, each and individually, as a person as well as the collective consciousness. It's a choice we make together. Because we know, quite inherently, somewhere deep in our soul, that this is an illusionary world, and therefore such things can be allowed to occur because the reality of them is way beyond what we're seeing here. This is always, and I mean always, a movement of heart, a movement of spirit, a movement of soul. It don't matter if you call yourself Microsoft and are the most evil being that ever lived and just want to control everybody's, innate desires and behaviors and shit, God. It don't matter how sick you are. We got the cure. And, it starts with Mary Jane. I know a lot of you are blaming Mel. I mean, I just saw an article this morning, really kind of, blew me away. A good friend of mine, a really close friend, I should say, as far as like the internet goes. But, more than that, she's like, part of my heart, man. And she's like turning her back on Mary Jane, saying, oh, God, she hasn't done nothing to ease my pain. I honor you for what you do, but I don't want to be with you anymore. And I understand those movements. I went through my phase where I gave up Mary Jane for a number of years, man. I had to know both sides of life, I'd been stoned since I was frickin' 19. I mean, and there I was 30, and I was like, no, I'm gonna try it without it now, and see how that, well, guys, it was the 80s, so things were weird anyway. But I learned, through that experience that, it's a little better. In fact, a whole lot better. When you let the angel Mary Jane take you by the hand and lead you into the promised land, or help you find your way there. I mean, sometimes you just have to feel it out because you don't even trust Mary Jane. You don't trust nothing. All you see in this life is pain. All you see in this life is loneliness. You haven't quite caught on yet. Well, you're getting there. Give yourself a little time. And the Mary Jane, you used her as a tool to escape rather than to inform. You got a little bit of enlightenment because it's unavoidable. But you kept avoiding those deep questions, but they kept coming up and coming up. And, it finally got to the point where you couldn't stand it anymore, so you had to give up the Mary Jane or answer the question. You didn't even know what the question was, but it just kept coming up. It's a pressure, it's a reality, it's a truth. See, Mary Jane, as the sacred herb and as the energy behind and within that sacred herb, is a truth serum of one sort or another. Now, it's kind of sneaky like most truth serums are. You don't even know you're on it, really. You just start feeling all high and intoxicated a wee bit, a little happy with your life all at once. You don't even know why. Fuck, you should be miserable, man. You're living down there in the jungle and you got no company, you got no friends and shit. It's just, oh, baby, look what the universe has for you inside of your heart. Look at the world you were born to create. Look at the aid that Mary Jane gives you in awakening to that dream that you've been born within. Not just a part of you, it is you, it's all of you. That dream of the peaceful place where everybody's so in love we don't even need sex anymore. Well, goodness gracious, guys. I know a lot of you don't want to give it up, do you? You know, and talk about giving some. I'd like to see you give up sex for a while. I've done it for a number of years. I bet you dummies can't do it. You're so goddamn horny, all of you, man. You know, what does that represent in your real life? A deep-seated desire for love and acceptance of yourself, of your person, as you are right now, discreated and dysfunctional as that may be. You know, you just want to be loved, you know, because you know that love will bring you forward naturally, and all of this dumbness and this numbness that we've been inhabiting will naturally dissolve away. But see, we are afraid of the sacred place of love. We are afraid to really commit ourselves to union, because we feel like somewhere inside there's this deep-seated fear that's been implanted in us long ago, before there ever was science even. Long ago, this deep-seated fear of truth, this deep-seated fear of real connection, of real love. We were taught and trained to accept an artificial substitute, kind of like the sweeteners they got nowadays that are all warped and full of GMOs and turn you into a morphodite weirdo in no time. If you drink it in your coffee, it's about the same kind. But the real sweetness still exists inside of us, even though it's been replaced by an artificial sweetener, you know, that doesn't work too well. Notice the dysfunctional relationships. Notice, oh my God, the mass reaction to people saying, oh, we can get married as gays now. Big fucking deal. Anybody that wants to get married is being just a bit unreal anyway. You're trying to follow the legends of Sir Lancelot and all that shit, man, back in the Knights of the Round Table when penises weren't very long and egos were. Sorry, guys, but that's the living truth. You know, it was really not such an ideal time. I have memories of those times. I know the feeling of them. May not remember the exact events and so forth, but I sure remember the feeling of them. And I'm damn glad we're not living there. And if you guys, think that's where you want to be, well, go back there and try it for a minute or two. You won't last long, let me tell you. That is a shit life, I got poisoned in one of my lives back in those times, around the 15th century or so, whenever it was, Avalon, I got poisoned, as I was like maybe in my mid-40s or mid-30s, I can't remember, but something like that. And I knew I was being poisoned, but guess what? I took it anyway. Because one, I knew it wouldn't taste bad, because the lady that did it was a real witch. And two, it was time to check on out of there, man. That was a miserable life. You can't imagine the misery of humanity in those days, why Avalon was such a great light, even though it was a work of wonder and brutality and savagery. I mean, totally brutal. I mean, it's shit. No heart at all. And yet we make all these legends and we think that's the better place to be because men were men and women were eloquent and everybody was getting along real. My ass! I mean, remember, I was poisoned in one of those, like by a woman who was jealous of another woman. I mean, shit. How crazy can life be? And that's the level at which we all operated on. This very guttural level where there was insane jealousies and rages and hatred off the pages and people starving to death and others walking right by and kicking them in the face for it. That's how heartless this world could be. And notice we haven't really given up that energy. We've just gotten more scientific about kicking people in the face, haven't we? You notice how we're starting to pick on minorities now, and the laws are subtly changing. All the progress of the 60s in the government seems to be going out the window, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, in the U.S. and across the earth. You notice how the racial intolerance is getting greater, not lesser. You know what I mean? But babies, also notice right along with that this ain't Avalon. This ain't the time of harsh brutality. This is the finish of all of that. And if you don't understand that yet inside of yourself, well, you best get with the program, listen to Tarzan beating on his chest, and understand what the fuck that means. It's kind of along the lines of what old Ted What's-His-Name did there in that movie about Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. But this is doing something about it, too. This ain't just opening your window and yelling because somebody on the TV told you to. This is you feeling a genuine need to return to an age of genteelness. where people are treated with respect no matter what they look like or what they are or how they appear to be, etc. It's a recognition of the universal heart in all of the life living, and therefore we no longer discriminate against any of it in any way. Yeah, that means some real huge changes in our patterns and habits. It means some real huge changes in our reality. Think about that. How's that for a wake-up call? You know, we're through with the bullshit. We don't like the pedophiles running the government. How nuts can it get? You know, I remember back in the 70s when I first started traveling to Washington, D.C. and got a little chance to spend some time there. Now, I can't say that I was shocked and amazed, but I was shocked and amazed at how libertine and how nutty the people that rule our world, or we thought did, are, you know, when it comes to partying. I mean, they are the most libertine and decadent pieces of shit. I mean, generally speaking, not everybody, but generally speaking, they're the most liberal and decadent pieces of shit. Yes, they do rape children continually. I mean, well, not all the time, but I mean, it's a habit they've gotten into, and they've got a little network of, you know, forced child prostitution, etc. to support it all. We ain't going to lie to ourselves about that. I saw the signs of it back in those days, back in the 70s when I first went there. It was obvious to anybody with a heart. It was obvious there was so much pain there that that place couldn't be inhabited much longer. I'm amazed that it's lasted till this day. Because what you got to understand about Washington, D.C. and the network that goes with it, which includes New York City, assholes, sorry, is that this is a failed system. It is the harbinger of pain. It is the very resonance of pain. Into all of this reality, it's become a Nazi empire. It's been taken over, but it was a Nazi empire from the beginning. This has been the plan all along. In the background, where nobody could see it. George Washington knew it, so did Tom Jefferson, etc. They did the best they could with what they had to operate on. You got to understand, this really has been a wicked, mean, and cruel world. Despicable in most of its representations. Dark as hell, because it is hell. It's a prison, man. This whole planet, this whole reality. It's a prison of sorts. Of sorts. There's that Tarzan yell, see? Tarzan stands in his cell and pounds his chest, and the cell goes away. Angawa and Hawa. You see what I mean, Jelly Bean? You starting to catch on, John? Hey, you liberating your pain, Jane? You see, it's time to let it go. Let yourself be free in this heart, in the capacity of this heart. And what does that mean? Moving over into that fearful side of yourself you call imagination, where things get so exaggerated and unreal, you know, where everything can be, wow, off the charts scary, off the charts love, off the charts perfection. That's what's at the essence of your imagination. Again, we've been manipulated and warped a lot. So we've, you know, our imagination has been warped right along with it. But babies, if you allow yourself to approach yourself inside in this loving way and start to embrace what we see of as imagination, holy shit, guys. You just got rid of all of the inequities in humanity. It's really that easy, you see. And what you got to remember when we're dealing with all these huge corporations and all this Nazi manipulation and all this death and terror and corruption and secret programs and child molestations, wholesale fashion, etc. What you got to remember is, you know, we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with personal presences that are much like we are. You know, they're perhaps reconstructed in a way, because in order to be that decadent, you really have to give yourself away. You really do, and you have to become controlled by another being in person. That's the way it is here. This is the land of the invaded, and the invader is our own heart in another form of intelligence and creation that ain't particularly human, and hates humanity and wants to rule over it forever. It's a dark and ugly thing. It's a cold and empty thing, but it's an aspect of ourselves we had to deal with. And babies, we're being pretty God-blessed creative about it. We really are. Because we have the ability to forgive and let go of anything. and in so doing, change the way things are done here. The only reason they perpetuate, and I'm talking about the evil, nasty shit like child molestation amongst the politicians and so forth, the only reason why this exists is because we continue to fear it, and through that fear we make an allowance for it. We don't see our own power. We're dealing with people here, sick people. They need the serum of our love, and it don't have no aluminum powder or mercury in it either, man. They need the soothing recognition of our heart, that despite all their despicable nature, we recognize the humanity in them, and we bring them back out of it by letting go of whatever's done in the past. That's how you turn around in the saddle, like we've been talking last week, and see yourself moving into the future that you're creating in the right now. Instead of watching the past and worrying so God bless so much about what's gone on there. It's time just to let it go. And that's all we can do. There is no way to correct that past. No way. Except to live in the love of right now. And then you'll start to see that a whole lot differently than you ever have before. And you'll realize the prison is paradise, that hell is paradise, and, hell and heaven work together. And they're really nice together, too. And when we finally let go of the judgment and the pain and the surreal reality in which we've lived, we begin to live that life, because that's what we're here to give. That's what we're here to be. In this generation, in this time of right now, when it seems so horrible, when it seems like souls are selling the humanity down the river, and pretty much assuring our extinction. Some scientists say we've got 6 years before this planet is totally done and all the life on it. And that's believable to me because I can see what's going on here, But at the same time, the rescue crew is alive. We're present. We're here, babies. And we ain't going anywhere but right here, right now, man. Yeah, you think we're all going to fly away in the silver ships alive. Well, there's a time and a place for everything now, isn't there? But the reality is we're here to reoccupy the true earth. To let go of the old unscientific illusion that says hell has to exist. And that people have to be pissed and hateful towards each other, Talk about a backwards world. Talk about an insane society. It's sure been a goodie, ain't it, Talk about a real exposition, a real scientific exploration of every aspect of insanity. And good God, we've done it here, ain't we? You see why the recipe's pretty much filled up. And when you consider that's just what we know about in a few thousand years in human behavior. Sick shit, man. Sick shit. But what we remember in our genes, what we remember in our conscious presence, is a whole bunch of times where Earth has risen up in humanity and the heart is just about ready to blossom and grow and something fucks it up. And we're back to caveman again. It's gone on again and again and again. And it seems like all of us have some kind of, cosmic memory of those events and moments, in our past. We got that. It's in us. It's an awareness, And so there's a fear arises in the present that says, it's going to happen that same way again. And all this ugliness around us pretty much confirms that the evil ones are going to retake the place openly and that everything but going to be worse to hell than we could ever created before. That's what it looks like, on one aspect, on one side of it. If you listen to the media and you look at the government and all their manipulations, you look at people's behaviors. And goddamn, you don't see much change there, Yet, I see hearts blossoming all across this planet. You see? I know better. Maybe this is the 33rd time. Maybe this really is the 33rd reset for humanity, and maybe that's the magic. Maybe that's why this time, instead of going back into the prisonating hell, we're going to the liberation of paradise, man, because that's what we began. See, in the 60s, as people began to awaken in that time and realize that love was more important than anything else in life and do their best then to manifest that in the crude sort of ways we could do it back then. But how beautiful. When that began, you knew there was a change in the air. It was huge. The children of those days threw out all of the restrictions of the society they were raised up in. gave up on their parents' parameters completely because they knew they were lied to and full of horse shit, you know. So they determined peace, love, and, you know, free love and marijuana would be the way, you know, and that was the way to open up and, you know, become more natural, live with nature, not again her, etc., you know. It started a wave of motion. But in that wave of motion was the assurity, already, even in the 60s, that the deed was already done and that humanity would indeed ascend this time. We're coming out of the grave of death that we have lived in so long, and the tyranny behind the death, and tyranny that creates death, etc. We're coming back to life. We're giving up on death. See, we've all been that fucking unconscious. We never really come out of the death while we're living in this world, because we're born into death and we die into death, you see. It's a low state of being. It's a low state of conscious experience. In fact, there's hardly any consciousness in it. Why do you think we can be so thoughtlessly mean and cruel to each other? Sit around and eat the meat of the animals, our brothers and sisters, without even thinking about it. You know, let's go get a cheeseburger, man. I'm hungry, you know. Without even thinking about it, because we've lived in a lower state of consciousness. And the only place that such a thing can exist is in a fictional world. I'm sorry, but this is a grand fiction. And there's a few ways of awakening to that fact and realizing who you truthfully are and where we truthfully be. Truthfully be and how the heart has never failed us, has always been with us. That this is kind of like a video game we created for our own experience, so that we would know how aberrant creation could become should we unleash certain energies, you know. So we practiced them, so we'd know them, so we would not unleash them again. But also, in the absence, in the hell, is the realization of paradise. In the death is the realization of life. It happens each and every time we die. Here we go back to life, see. Life is real, death is not. That's the lesson here, or one of them. That's the main one, though. Life is real and death is not. Death is a fucking lie. And a big one, a huge one. You can't separate yourself from life in any way. Life is, period. There is no more, there is no less. Life is. And therefore love is, because love is life and life is made of love. Otherwise there is no life. And do you think this love could really inhabit such a cruel place as what we've lived in? In your own life, you've seen much of it. I don't care how easy or how hard you've had it. You've seen much of it. You know the glazing over of the eyes and the heartless cruelty that can come forward when those eyes glaze over. You know that one. You've seen it happen right before your very eyes many a time. You know better, too. You know in your heart that that's not true, that's not real. That the cruelty does not exist in any human heart, anywhere in existence. Not just here on this sweet old Mother Earth. There's lots of us scattered across the universe. We'll get into some details about that as we go along here, because it's time to wake you the fuck up. So we're going to tell you some stuff, some little stories, you know, that will help you understand where humanity has been and where humanity is going. Humanity, more, more like it, you know. I love the graciousness we allowed into the feminine form here. It kept us alive. It kept us reminded there is graciousness in this life. However warped it might be in this life, it's still there. It's still behind everything. Graciousness. Now, this young generation pretty much tossed it out, spoiled rotten here in the U.S. of A., probably in Canada, too, and a little bit in Mexico, probably, you know. All across this earth where there's much money and shit kicking around, you know, spoiled brats, you know. Don't give a shit about anything or anyone else but what you want right now and want to feel it, right? Go a little deeper, kids. You'll see what's really going on there and why you are a little hedonistic. See, you're the purists. You're the generation of reception. You're the generation of truth. You're the generation that demands absolute purity and love and absolute perfection in reality around you. You see, that's why you've chosen such an abject route, because, again, just like all the rest of us, you're born into a world that ain't that, knowing that it is. You're saying, what the fuck, you know, and so you're trying to adjust and make do until you can get to that place that you know is there, that really is the truth. The real life, where everything is in love with everything. There aren't any dictators. There aren't any rulers. There aren't anything but love. Pure expressions of love and life in all of its many forms, totally integrated with itself. So in other words, it feels and resonates in every form that is. You can be walking past a cricket and feel the fullness of that cricket inside of you because you're fully in that cricket and it's fully in you. And that's just one little aspect. All the sand around it too. All the trees that arise from that, etc., etc., etc. It's huge. It's almost beyond comprehensions. And babies, humans have been programmed severely to fear that. To fear that reawakening, that conception that we actually live in creation. That we actually are creation and therefore control its flow and its regeneration. See, that's what the abominable ones have been trying to keep us from, is that awakening, that awareness, that truth that we live in creation and all creation lives within us and we work together harmoniously. Why anyone would be afraid of that, I don't know. Why anyone would program that, I don't know. But we've done it to ourselves again. We're dealing with human presences in all instances here as far as what's been going on in this world. Now there's, the invaders, but again, they are human presences in the sense that we have allowed it to be. It's an aspect of ourselves we needed to deal with. That's what this video game is all about. Getting through all the aspects of creation. So we embrace and form purely from here on out. We can't do anything else. We know the aberrations. We know the aberrant expressions. We know how bad it can get. We've been through the worst of it already. Every life here is a living hell of one sort or another. Every life here is a living paradise of one sort or another. And they grok and they meld. In the buffalo love, the simplicity, that which knows enough to live on the prairies and love the grass that it eats upon, love the sun that gives it life, etc. That which is intelligent enough to appreciate what it has and not always be looking for more because it's so empty. That which is so filled, it doesn't need anything more than what it's got right there, whatever that might be. It's satisfied, in other words. It's content. And from that contentment arises, again, the greatest orgasm there could ever be. A shout of joy. Contentedly so it's more like a sigh. You see, finally we get the relief we've been looking for. Finally we understand the simplicity in our life and allow it to be. And that's why I advise a lot of folks not to go to work this morning. Hell, take the day off, man. Go play. Go find yourself. Screw the doggone shipping dock or wherever else you happen to work. Just let it be. Let somebody else can do it today. You're on your way. And if they fire you, hell, they just did you a gift. Set you free, babies. Take a day off. Take a year off. And don't do it anymore, especially if you work in the government and you're in one of those agencies that do all this nasty shit. You know it. You know you're a part of it. You may not see the whole picture, but you know it. Walk away, babies. Fuck the money. It ain't worth it. It ain't. Come and live in the mountains for a while. Find yourself when you get bit by 1 billion skeeters. Well, you better go someplace other than Crestonia for the moment, unless you have the ability to live amongst the skeeters peaceably, because you probably do. They'll only be here for another, 3 weeks or so, and then they're gone. Which is, just another one of those seasons, just like the below zero weather is. It's just something that happens at certain times of the year, Just bad this year, Well, they remind us really of what's really been going on and how dastardly this world around us has been. What a bunch of bloodsuckers, you see? What a bunch of empty bullshit. That's where the mosquito comes from, empty bullshit. And the minute we can feel ourselves fulfilled, you won't see a skeeter or a tick or anything like that in this reality ever again. You won't see a corrupt politician either, let alone a corrupt government or corrupt corporation. These things become non-entities, non-existent. They dissolve away. They don't just go away. They don't just voluntarily retire and things go on the way they should. They dissolve away. As living proof that that's an illusion and that we created it, for ourselves. That way we can love ourselves for it and move beyond it, see? So that's what you're experiencing on this bright and beautiful Monday as we begin this day. With quite the wake-up call, wouldn't you say? Well, mother truckers, you had it coming your way, and it's about time. Now let's get the fuck up and get moving and be love and let's go party. Monday is here to stay, babies. Because it's every day, it's every moment, it's who we are right now. And that's all that matters. Yeehaw! And away we go. Carly, I know. This is one of Carly's more modern songs, and she's really anxious to share it with you again. So I gotta let her, and maybe Linda right behind her, because Carly, you got kind of a big head. You gotta know Linda's there too. Okay? Hey, happily we travel along into our beautiful Monday with respect for ourselves, babies. Coincidentally. I don't know where that comes from, but all of a sudden we're finding it, aren't we? We're starting to see beyond the bullshit, babies. We're really beginning to live. We're letting go of the deaths and bringing ourselves back to life forever, man. In a very pleasant, real, and natural way. Fuck hell. Let's have paradise. Really nice, eh? So says Grandpa here as we begin this Monday here on the Coyote Medicine Show on the ever-loving Hazy Radio Network. A work of love if ever there was one. Guys, check out some of our other shows here on the network. Besides old Grandpa, you'll be amazed what's here, babe. I know there's a little bit of glitz and glamour and a little bit of hoodoo and darkness and shit. Do it. You know, see through it, man. Love yourself for it. Be conscious. Be present. Wake the fuck up, babies. Here we go.
Let the river run. Let all the dreamers wake.